When they are also young and experienced, this combination can constitute a death trap. Some informants told stories of local freelancers who started out as fixers and ended up when they are also young and experienced. This combination can constitute a few that reportedly ending up. Some informants told stories of local, but that was on my lawyer. While these cases are probably exceptions to the rule, they show that there are opportunities for those who are willing to take the risk, as long as they manage to survive. It was summed up by one of the fully employed international correspondents in our study. If you find yourself next to a freelancer in the field, you know that you have gone too far. Although covering local conflicts in the province areas could be among the most dangerous assignment for a reporter, one can also ask whether the risk differs between women journalists and their male counterparts. Most of the threats to women, according to male and female informants, consist of sexual harassment and verbal threats, abduction, in some rare cases also rape, and capture into forced marriages, especially when covering local conflict in provincial areas. Several mentioned the risk of not being let out again if entering a camp or area under control of certain insurgency groups. Kidnapping, rape, and violence is a regular concern for women journalists at work. Gender consideration and macho culture is strong. The social environment and its impact on career liability and the competition for assignments are other issues that could benefit from more research. And by the way, this was done before the Me Too campaign that has really documented the gravity of this issue. This study shows that women journalists face different threats than men, sometimes that affect their risk assessment and preparation to work in conflict zone. The study recommends that gender perspectives of risk are taken into consideration for the development of security training, although the details remain to be better understood and more research is needed. Furthermore, the gender categorization of individuals and the challenge it poses in the field of conflict reporting have so far not received substantial attention. But there are some good news. I've just told the bad so far. A lot of campaigning are done by different organizations, groups, and human rights organizations. Recently committed to protect journalists, after many years, could report a successful release by the Ethiopian journalist Eskinder Neja, who recently was freed from jail after several years in prison. Several of his colleagues are still there. Another good news is that willingness to cooperate to fight the impunity problem and harassment among journalists. In the report presented here today, UNESCO notes with satisfaction that there is increased willingness among countries to cooperate on protection of rights of journalists. 74% of the member states that were asked to provide specific information on the status of judicial investigation of killed journalists contributed, while 5 acknowledged the request or provided general information regarding the situation of journalist safety. But as you understand, we have a real long way to go. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Ottosen. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. For those insights, we are going to watch a brief video. As the team puts it together, we want to welcome all those who have just joined us. Thank you for coming. Yes, I think we are set.
world is going in terms of freedom of expression, which is so important for development. This is the report you should read, a new UNESCO report. You can have debates about it. You should bring it to the attention of your members of parliament. You should discuss with the internet companies. You should discuss with journalists. This gives us the big picture about what we need to do to strengthen freedom of expression for sustainable development.
That's it. We've already been told that one of our sponsors has been the Norwegian government. May I take this opportunity to call the Norwegian ambassador, Her Excellency Susan Eke, to give us her remarks. You're most welcome. It's good manners to clap. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Dear Dean, Professor Aron, dear journalists, students, dear scholars, dear friends of freedom of expression and gender equality, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for inviting me to speak at this important launch of the UNESCO World Trend Report. I'm pleased to see this very important gathering of representatives from Uganda media, academia, there's a government here, civil society, and private sector. I am, of course, proud to note the Norwegian involvement in today's event, represented by Professor Ottesen, who we just heard, and the Oslo Metropolitan University. And I'm very impressed by the dean, who could pronounce Akershus perfectly. So I think he already is half Norwegian at least. So the professor had a very compelling, important, and at times disturbing speech. I will touch on some of the issues, so we're not fully coordinated, but I think it's only because those are issues that are also close to my heart. So let me start. So when I was invited to speak today, I did as I often do. I counted the number of women and men on the participants list. The preliminary list had 67 participants. 21 of the names belonged to women. That is about 30%, and I think that's about what we have today, maybe somewhat less. So this is about the same percentage that the trend report says is the share of female journalists, namely 30%. The numbers of women decision makers is worse. It's only 1 in 4. In terms of experts interviewed, only 1 in 5 were women. So I know there's a section in the report where you can read more about it. Just to go a little local, not long ago, I visited the Nation Media Group, Daily Monitor, and I met managers and editors. They were very gracious hosts. Among them is Maki, and all the top brass showed up. So they were, when I met them, if I remember correctly, 5 men and 1 woman. There was 1. I said that I had noted that most, if not all, commentators in articles and op-eds in the Daily Monitor were men. Was that right? I could see the female manager in the room. She nodded very actively when I pointed that out. And yes, everyone could confirm that very few, if, maybe every so often, but not very often, a woman would have an op-ed. But mostly men, and all the permanent op-ed commentators are men. Is that still so? Yeah. So there you go. So why is this so? I'm sure there are several answers, but one that I don't believe in is that women do not have opinions, because we do. As you know, if you believe cartoons and jokes, maybe sexist, this is lots of times about women who are rather opinionated. So it's not that we don't have opinions, but where is our voice in the public sphere? Why or are our contributions not taken seriously? Are they willingly excluded? So what is the reality for women's access to and presence in the media in Uganda? What can and should we do when we know that women remain heavily underrepresented in the media workforce, in decision-making roles, and in media content, both as sources and subjects? Fortunately, there are some responses to the continuing marginalization of women. A range of civil society organizations, media outlets, and individuals have developed initiatives to change the picture, like the UNESCO-initiated Global Alliance for Media and Gender, and by applying gender-sensitive indicators for media. In Uganda, we have UVONET, their members, and other organizations working to promote the voice of women, including in the media. Norway is proud to support such organizations, which also include the important work of the International Federation of Journalists, the Norwegian Union of Journalists, and Norwegian and International PEN. Defenders of freedom of expression, human rights defenders, we have representatives here from the Uganda human rights bodies. Uganda, as you know, have many brave defenders of freedom of expression and other human rights. As we heard, defending human rights can be difficult and even dangerous, especially for those raising human rights issues in their own countries. Attention and support from the international community is crucial, not only to encourage human rights defenders to keep up their efforts, but it can also provide effective protection. Now, to a point that Professor Ottersen, I'm very glad to hear he mentioned the issue of gender. And female media workers face particular challenges. The professor called them gender-specific threats, such as sexual harassment and gender-based violence, and only because they want to do the job. Women journalists may be more at risk than men when they're reporting from the field, including in conflict areas, as the professor explained. The groundbreaking Me Too campaign has directed our attention to the discrimination, unwanted attention, and illegal acts also women in the media are subject to. And because we have good journalists here in Uganda, we have also been alerted to Me Too issues at the very host of this meeting today at Makerere University. And I know that there's a willingness to deal with these very difficult and problematic and possibly even illegal issues. Women, as well as men, should be hired and respected for the work they do. Journalism can be life-threatening. The professor noted that between 2012 and 2016, 530 journalists were killed, an average of 2 deaths per week. And many of them were local journalists. And I think not only journalists, the local ones, also in terms of human rights defenders, we know that the local human rights defenders are the most vulnerable, not only in journalism, but also in other areas. For every journalist killed, many more face the risk of enforced disappearance, arbitrary detention, kidnapping, torture, and other threats. Many are forced to give up their work, and diversity of voices is lost. These are serious attacks on freedom of expression and freedom of the press. They are serious attacks on democracy. The perpetrators are rarely brought to justice. Every act of violence that goes unpunished encourages further violence. This means that accountability for attacks against journalists is is a key to preventing future attacks. And I couldn't agree more with the professor that impunity must stop. I think another issue that we have seen in many places, the professor mentioned it, in terms of many countries, and that is the harassment of journalists. The threats to journalists, I just heard on the radio, on a podcast from Norway, about a Norwegian journalist who wrote about international issues, and he gets so many threats on his articles online. People write in the most horrific things. He's being called for just reporting about something that some people have especially strong opinion about. So this happens absolutely everywhere. I don't think he should actually report it to the police, but I think it's so much, it's so vast, it's almost impossible to get it right. So I think that is something that we share, and I can completely understand that journalists will lose their sleep, to say the least, about this, and really struggle in their lives to be attacked like this, not necessarily physically, but absolutely mentally, and it affects their mental health. Ladies and gentlemen, regrettably, there is a shrinking space for freedom of expression, independent media, and civil society in many countries. According to Reporters Without Borders, acts of intimidation and violence against journalists take place also in Uganda. Uganda ranks as 112 in the 2017 World Press Freedom Index. In the 2016 elections, media freedom was challenged, including statements about the closing of media outlets, interruption of social media, and verbal and physical attacks on reporters. However, Uganda's overall freedom status has improved in 2018, according to the Freedom House annual report. Civil liberties rating has also improved, and the report emphasizes that this is due to the resilience of the media sector and the willingness of journalists, bloggers, and citizens to voice their opinions. This underpins the crucial importance of the work done by the Ugandan media and journalists, and certainly here at the institution where we train journalists. Dear participants, I would like to thank the Journalism and Media International Center at Oslo Metropolitan University, our host Makerere University, and the UNESCO offices in Nairobi and Paris for organizing this important launch in Kampala. We can look forward to interesting presentations and fruitful discussions this afternoon. I will be on the lookout for suggestions to achieve more gender parity in the media, in Uganda, and everywhere. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and for that continued support to us as a university. We ask you to extend our warm appreciation. We'll now listen to another video, a brief one. This one is from the Minister for Culture and Democracy in the government of Sweden, and her name is Alice Bah Punke. Right? Dennis Juba pronounced it right.
Freedom of expression is the DNA of our democracies. So we have to fight to make sure that the freedom of expression is there and is there for everybody. And journalists, the journalists, they are in the forefront of this war with their pen. So when a journalist is under attack, it's an attack of our whole society. the report, World Trends on Freedom of Expression and Media Development, is important because we need to do some changes.
Yeah, those are lessons to the students of journalism to make very short videos. That one is done. We have a live streaming. Hindu, can you share the link? Can you project it? So it's for those who want to pass it on to your colleagues who are not able to join us. Yes, we have come to another important point of this day. That is the presentation of the report for which we are gathered. And I'd like to introduce Lydia Chunji. Lydia is a very, very good fellow. When we came in here, she was already here, and she was so happy that she was wearing purple, like our very smartly dressed ushers. Lydia has previously worked for UNESCO in their regional office in Windhoek. She recently worked in South Sudan with UNESCO for 3 years. Currently, Lydia is the regional expert in charge of safety of journalists and media development at the UNESCO regional office for Eastern Africa. Hindu, can I have Lydia's beautiful photo here? Lydia holds a master's degree in international studies and diplomacy from the University of Nairobi, Kenya, and her thesis was on the role of the media in conflict management, a case study of Rwanda and Burundi. She has a very rich CV here, but for now, I will stop at that. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Lydia to take us through the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Marion. And before I start, may I also confess that I'm here because of the Norwegian government. My post is paid by the Norwegian Foreign Affairs Ministry. After that very lengthy and rich CV, I'll go straight to our presentation. I'm not sure if I can control the PowerPoint from here. Can I control it from here? Do you have any remote? No? So possibly I'll ask the technicians to go along with me. Today, ladies and gentlemen, and without protocols observed, the ambassador and all the invited guests, our donors, the Norwegian government, the Swedish embassy, we do thank you for continually supporting UNESCO in this endeavor to promote freedom of expression globally. We are very excited that you are here with us as we launch this report. If we go to the second screen, my presentation will only be like 20 to 25 minutes, and I'll try to make it shorter, like 10 minutes if I can. And we'll only look briefly at the introduction, what tools we've used for the global threat assessments. We'll also look at some highlights on the outcome of the key findings. The next, yes. First of all, may I say from UNESCO's perspective, and this is why we're here, we do have 5 main approaches when it comes to promoting freedom of expression. We do promote global norms, normatives, as you know, and we do support standard settings, and we take lead in this when it comes to freedom of expression in the UN system. We also do support a lot of awareness raising on freedom of expression, media freedom, safety of journalists, and access to information. We do support a lot of monitoring and reporting on freedom of expression and the related rights. We do support a lot of research, and we do capacity building, both human and technical capacity building. This is to do with the institutions, with individual journalists and networks. We worked with the Makerere University. I remember back when I joined UNESCO very many years ago, like 1998. But we worked with the University of Makerere University to do the media development indicators for Uganda. That would be another report you should watch out and also see the trends in the country. It's about to be published, but I think you can get a soft copy from our colleagues. It's not a hidden book. What are the global trends assessment that we've looked at? We assess the global trends based on the Biduk Declaration, and we focus on what are the trends to do with media freedom, what are the trends to do with media independence, what are the trends to do with safety of journalists, which is my passion, what are the trends to do with plurality of media choices. And our whole objective as UNESCO with our partners, we have a very special focus on gender equality in the media. And you realize this whole report, every aspect of the form, we've made a special focus on gender parity. And this report, the whole objective is to provide the development partners, the academia, the students, the civil society, the journalists, the citizens, and everyone with a global perspective for those seeking to understand the changing global media landscape. And when we talk of global perspective, this is also to help you measure your national indicators as well, and also to align your development agenda and the areas that you intend to intervene in alongside what is happening at the global level. So it's a mirror of what is happening in your own country, but reflected in different countries. On the next slide, please. Some of the general remarks and highlights that you see in this report before we go to the 4 specific themes. For sure, and this is very, very evident even in our region, journalism is under fire. Journalism is under fire. The media is challenged, extremely challenged, particularly in adapting to the new media world that is time-sensitive and more interactive. For the reason that we have more individuals, more citizens having access to content and real-time news than ever before. For the reason that we have rapid political, technological, and economic transformations. This and many others have placed very new strains on media freedom. And you realize with the traditional business models that we had on print media are strained, extremely strained. And with the influx, of course, of internet and also the technological development, there's a lot of increased hate speech. You find it in this report. We do see content that encourage a lot of violent extremism, particularly to do with our youth. And there are so many issues to do with cybersecurity. And may I emphasize more of cybersecurity, particularly when it comes to women journalists. We find a lot of cyberbullying, hate speech, trolling, and everything that goes with hate speech and cyber security concerns. And also, one of the things that you realize from this report that there is increased threat of journalistic sources protection, because a lot of sources are not only now offline, they're also online, and most of the times we do not have laws, cybercrime laws in our countries that even leave alone supporting journalists that are using the sources. And this has posed a lot of strain and a lot of attack on journalists. So journalism is under fire. In Kenya, may I use this term, journalism is so much under fire that it is being called the Githeri media. What is Githeri? Githeri is the cheapest meal you can get. And they allude that you only need to give a journalist that Githeri, maize and beans that is mixed and fried together for them to produce a story. So the politicians, especially when they stand in front of you like I am, they talk of our Githeri media in Kenya. You can imagine this is how low and how difficult it is for the media sector. And for a sector like Kenya that is expected to be vibrant and leading the way in the region, they are suffering. Journalism is under fire. The first assessment that we looked at, and these are the highlights, is to do with the media freedom. What does our report say? That there is a stronger right to seek and a stronger right to receive information. But there is growing restrictions when it comes to the right to impact. So, participants, what is most important? Is it your right to receive? Is it your right to seek? While you are restricted on your right to impact or disseminate the same information. This is what the report is saying. And some of these rights are affected by the continued legal restrictions, including criminal laws, that we have very many laws in our countries, even in Uganda, Kenya. But you find very many global clauses that promote defamation, they promote insult, they promote blasphemy. When I was in South Sudan for 3 years, we worked with the national, international, and the government to come up with the media laws. But when the media law went to parliament, there was somebody, we don't know from where, who sneaked in the definition of what is a criminal law, what is a civil law. And as much as we thought defamation was not going to be contained in that document, it ended up being there. And they said for a journalist to do 1, 2, 3, you commit a criminal offense, not a civil offense. And to get that law out of the media law is very difficult. So we find even in our region, we have these challenges. In Rwanda, just recently, like last month, the journalists were pretty shocked when the law went into parliament and they realized the penal code now has been included in the media law, and they had to do a lot of lobbying. Fortunately, Rwanda is now becoming very progressive when it comes to these things, and the global clause has been removed. We also need to look at the Uganda law. We have global clauses. We have defamation in your laws. Do you have laws that are being used to restrict freedom of expression? There is, and I'm not going to go into other details, there is a lot of increased blocking, especially when it comes to elections. We saw this in Uganda in 2016. There are a lot of also national security concerns and states of emergency and anti-terrorism laws that have suspended or curtailed freedom of expression. In South Sudan, you take a newspaper to the print with everything contained, and sorry to say so, the National Security Service people in the printing press. So as your newspaper is released the following day or that day, some sections of your paper are removed, even the front page. If an article is not promoting what perhaps the national security thinks you should be promoting, you are given a newspaper with blank spaces all over. This is how much national security concerns and national security laws are affecting the media, not just globally, but even in our own region. And we have already said that digital media has raised new challenges to the right, privacy, and the journalistic sources. Next slide. These are just highlights. The next slide, please. Yes. The second one we've looked at is threats in media pluralism. Media pluralism is promoted so much in the video declaration, but what we are seeing and what the UNESCO report has highlighted and has assessed and come up with is that now there is more plurality of information, but no changes in gender equality through and in media. You will find there's so many media houses, a lot of cross ownership. NMG will own the radio, the TV, and everything. And we have so many diverse community, private, and all that. But when it comes to gender equality in these media houses, and even through the media, even promotion of women through the media, this is not being realized. The pluralism continues to be very limited, and women are heavily, as the ambassador said, very heavily underrepresented in the media workforce, in the decision-making roles, and in the media content, all the sources and subjects. But what is the media itself doing about it? We are not promoting gender parity. And as much as we have access to a lot of platforms that have got, particularly in this digital area, yes, we still have that challenge. Why are we not using the social media platforms to promote gender equality? Why is the newspaper globally circulation falling? Yet, even as we take on the social media platform, we do not see the media taking advantage of promoting gender equality through the media. Why are we not using the rapid internet connectivity in our region and globally? These are challenges that we are facing, and the programs that we need to come up with, or the programs that our donors are supporting, need to address these challenges. Yes, we can talk of media pluralism, but we cannot say that within those platforms we are seeing gender parity. We go to the next slide. The other trend we've looked at is media independence. I was in Rwanda last year in November. Rwanda does celebrate what we call Africa Information Day around November. And the whole agenda was to look at how is the media in the digital era? How do we sustain? What are the imperatives for sustainability of our media in the digital era? Because in Rwanda, a lot of the media houses rely on government adverts. If they do not get government adverts, they are shutting down. You can imagine. It's that serious. The government is doing everything possible to ensure that the media realizes that you need your independence. You need to look for sustainability. So what you're seeing in the UNESCO Freedom of Expression Media Development Report is that there are strains on business models. They are more dependent on outside influence. And you can imagine what that means. You're not able to sustain the media houses within the means that you have. They're looking at government reliance, they're looking at private sector and all the others. And when they're not forthcoming, the media houses are shutting down all the kind of content they're producing to serve the masses that are funding them. So there's a lot of rise in rhetoric against the media because of your over-reliance on the government, and political figures have taken advantage of that. And what is the impact? It is encouraging a lot of self-censorship and undermining of media's credibility. Take an example of Kenya, take an example of any country. This is what is happening because you end up relying on the government, on the non-state actors, and this undermines media credibility because the content that is coming out of our media houses is to please the one that is, what would you say in this region? The person that gives you the food on the table is the person that you serve. This has led to a lot of growing intolerance and is undermining journalism generally. There is increased dependence on government, as we said, and corporate subsidies, and this has disrupted the business model. There is now decrease, very heavy decrease in trust in news media. And in some regions, this is very serious. In Kenya now, people would rather trust that WhatsApp message than trust the news that will be read online. And then we've seen a trend where broadcast license continues to be driven by political and commercial interest. In all this, as I have seen Rwanda requesting UNESCO to support an assessment in Rwanda on media, the imperatives that can sustain the media in this whole mix, in this digital era. What are the imperatives? And I think that's an assessment that we need to replicate in other countries, because definitely the media cannot die. The print media should not die. citizen journalist cannot replace the professional journalist, and we need to do something about it. These are the trends. The kind of programs that you have today have to address this. Next slide. The other slide was presented very well by our two previous speakers, especially the National Commission and the Oslo Met. And you highlighted these issues that I'm not going to repeat. We talked about 2012, 2016, about 530. By the time the UNESCO DG was releasing the report last year, it was about over 827 journalists have been killed. And what we are seeing, the vicious cycle, is that as much as there is increased reporting and being more responsive to judicial inquiries into killings and reporting and investigations, the response is not reducing the killings, it's not reducing the harassment that we heard of, it's not bringing an enabling environment because it is so small, it is so minute, it is like 0% of the kind of killings that we have had. And there was so much emphasis about the local journalists being more killed in this report, and this is what we've seen more than the foreign journalists, but no journalist should die. When one journalist is killed, we all suffer. So this is what the report is saying. It is also talking about the growing threats of digital safety. So when you talk about safety of journalists today, just looking at the traditional journalists, we should also look at the online media journalists in Kenya and other countries. We have the bloggers associations that have now a code of conduct and have aligned their code to professional reporting online. And there's a lot of digital attacks, cyber attacks, and as we said, and as she said, women are the culprits. They have the highest number of the culprits. In many countries where we've done research using gender-sensitive indicators, we've realized that many now women journalists are shying away from online journalism because when a woman has been followed and your picture has been thrown into the cyberspace and there is a lot of attack. But unlike our men who fight on, most of the women do not have the courage to fight on. So we end up finding women where the space is now more promoted, which is the online space. They're not there. And we need to do something about female journalists and publishing online and strengthening our national cybersecurity laws to protect our female journalists. Can we go to the next slide? So in conclusion, and addressing the shrinking space, what can we do? What can we do in this region? What can we do globally? These are just some of the highlights and some thoughts that we have. We should definitely do something and have programs that enhance gender equality online. Proactively provide opportunities and build more capacity of women to develop an online presence that will liberate them from the newsroom hierarchies. We should do more to advocate and support progressive cybersecurity laws. This we cannot do without. If our legal system that will protect our journalists and our the personnel, the media personnel online are not strong enough, we cannot achieve much. These cybersecurity laws that are not progressive are hindering freedom of expression and media freedom. We should promote a lot of media and information literacy, digital literacy. What is happening in a country like Kenya is not that non-state actors now are even citizens. What is happening is that you go to a region as a journalist, and because you are associated with a certain media house whose ownership is linked to this party or whose ownership is linked to this president or this leader, you go there and you see, for example, K24 in a region that is an opposition field. There has been a lot of attacks from the citizens themselves. So we need to do a lot of media and information literacy in our countries to enable our citizens to understand the role of the media in the country when it comes to development, when it comes to education, when it comes to entertainment, all these roles. And we need to make the citizens understand that the media is a member of the fourth estate and it is not there to promote the agenda of political parties. And this is one of the things that is affecting very many countries, when even the parliamentarians themselves, when the citizens themselves, and even some governments do not fully understand what is the role of the media. What is the role of the media? We do not understand, and we do have a lot of materials as UNESCO on media and information literacy. We do have a lot of initiatives that can be replicated in this region, in this country, and globally to educate the citizens. We do need to educate our journalists on digital literacy, digital protection. A lot of the things that are happening out there of our journalist harassment and killing is because of lack of understanding on how to protect yourself online. Do you understand the media laws? Do you understand the cybersecurity laws? Do you understand how to protect the information online? How to protect your sources online? We need to build a lot of capacity in our media houses on issues of access, privacy, safety, security, ethical issues of use of information, modern technology, and in line with the internationally accepted human standards. I asked Professor Goretti, because I worked with her very many years ago, whether working with the University of Juba. And one of the things we've seen partners is that there are so many initiatives everywhere supporting capacity building of journalists, but these trainings are not institutionalized within our journalism institutions. I will come as an NGO or as an INGO or as a civil society with my own curriculum on what is safety and digital. But a lot of that is trained is not meeting the real demand. Can we support this to have programs to institutionalize? If it is safety of journalists within our institutions, come up with modules that really focus in these areas and address all these challenges, the professionalism and everything that our journalists are facing in the field. We need to build the capacity of our researchers and the academic institutions and everywhere to do continuous research and disseminate this information that can help us inform those that have programs that address the challenges the report has highlighted. We also need to do capacity building of our media houses for survival. How do we sustain media houses? And sometimes we focus on very many other programs, but I do not see partners really paying much interest on, can we have a program on how to sustain independent media, for example, in Uganda? Can we have those kind of programs? Can we have data that says if we do 1, 2, 3, the media in Uganda, in Kenya, globally is going to be sustained? We need to do this kind of capacity building. We need to help them to innovate and generate relevant content, locally generated content that is going to be distributed nationally, that has audiences nationally and cross borders. This is the only way that the media can survive. We do not pay much attention on this. We keep training journalists. Where are they going to work? Most of our media houses are either not going to survive in the next few years without these challenges, or they'll be focusing on things that do not promote freedom of expression. Finally, countries have to increase coordination, cooperation, and knowledge sharing to promote this debate on how to address the shrinking space of media freedom. We keep talking of multi-stakeholder approach. And we keep saying as UNESCO, there is no one single institution, not Makerere, not a single donor, not UNESCO, can address the many challenges in the media sector. We need to increase our coordination. We need to have a framework. And that's why for UNESCO, in every country that you are working with, we talk of a media sector working group. A media sector working group that brings everybody in the room, including the perpetrators themselves. How can we address safety of journalists if the perpetrators themselves are not in the room? You cannot address cybersecurity issues. You cannot address national security concerns if you do not have a dialogue with the people that perhaps are perpetrating these things. You cannot have a constructive media debate if you do not bring the brains of civil society, the brains of the academia, the brains of the journalists themselves, the brains of the development partners, and even the experts in this field. So I'm leaving you with a challenge in Uganda. That's because we are here. In Kenya now, we have the Kenya Media Center Working Group that is very strong. In In South Sudan, we have the South Sudan Media Sector Working Group. What is the coordination in Uganda? How are you working together? Are you bringing everybody on board in the same room? Or are we working in silos, pockets, running after donors' money, doing 1, 2, 3, that has no sustainability, and no one is building on what you did yesterday? Can we come together and do this? My last slide is just to say thank you.
You change your seats to this other side next to Helen. Helen, you're most welcome. Shall we give Lydia another round of applause? Thank you for taking us through this report in relation to media freedom, media pluralism, media independence, and safety of journalists. We now go into a panel discussion over the same. May I hand over to my colleague who will take us through this panel discussion, Charles Magusia. But before that, Hindu, shall we know who these panelists are? Hindu, thank you. Our first panelist is Professor Goretti Linda Nasanga. Thank you, Professor Nasanga. There she is. We're very proud of her as a department. She's the first and currently the only professor of journalism and communication in Uganda. She was the first head of Department of Journalism and Communication at Makerere University, where she continues to lecture and conduct research. In 2017, Professor Nasanga, in that picture you see there, received the highly coveted Media Lifetime Achievement Award in recognition of her outstanding contribution to Uganda's media industry. She prides in a long and rich media experience from humble beginnings of a journalist in 1980. So students, stay on the path. Her areas of expertise and research include development communication, women and media, community media, environment, climate communication, media ethics, policy and regulation, global communication, population and health communication, new media and ICT, and peace journalism. I think she has it all. She has carried out research in several areas relating to the media and has been a consultant at national, regional, and international levels. Professor Nasanga is definitely widely published in local and international peer-reviewed journals. In her 20 years of media training, Professor Nasanga has been inspired by the need to add to the growing body of knowledge in media through research and publication. She is one of the founder members of the Uganda Media Women's Association and is the former coordinator of the Africa Council on Communication Education and also a former chairperson of the Uganda Media Council. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Nasanga. Thank you. Our next panelist is again our own Professor Frederick Joko. We are very proud of him too. He is an associate professor of law based at the School of Law, Makerere University. He joined the school in 1976 and was the dean of the school from 1988 to 1994. He has also been the acting chair of the Department of Law and You're awake. And editor of the East African Journal of Peace and Human Rights. He has been instrumental in the reform of legal education in Uganda. He is an advocate in the courts of judicature in Uganda. His areas of teaching and research interest include human rights, the law of torts, public interest matters, constitutional law, commercial law, jurisprudence, and media law. You never told me how to pronounce that one. During the classes on media law and ethics. Yes, I had someone else who's also having trouble pronouncing it. He has written extensively on these topics. Professor Juka is currently teaching the law of torts to undergraduate students. He also taught media law at the Department of Journalism and Communication for more than 10 years. In addition, he is the author of a book titled The Fourth Estate, Media Freedom and Rights in Uganda. Ladies and gentlemen, our Professor Joko. And finally, from the industry, we have Daniel Kalinachi, who is also one of our own, at least having studied at Makerere. He's a Ugandan journalist working with the Nation Media Group as general manager in Uganda, in charge of editorial. He was previously the managing editor, regional content, and East African. At the age of 18, he joined the Crusader tri-weekly in Uganda. When it closed a year later, he started working at the Daily Monitor as a reporter, assistant radio news manager, deputy sports editor, associate editor, foreign news editor, investigations editor, and managing editor successively. He's a co-author of Open Secret, a book about the HIV/AIDS epidemic in Uganda. He has also written a book, Kizza Besigye and Uganda's Unfinished Revolution, which examines Kizza Besigye's ambitions, ideals, aspirations, illusions, and delusions. The book also outlines how President Museveni has repeated the mistakes made by predecessors like the late President Idi Amin and the late President Milton Obote. Kalinachi's work has appeared in the Daily Monitor, the East African, the hashtag New Internationalists, Africa Confidential, Weekly Observer, MS Magazine, and on the BBC World Service Radio. He is a member of the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. He is also a winner of the Chevening Scholarship, Sports Rookie of the Year, and the inaugural Tebere Mudin Award for Journalistic Excellence. Kalinachi has a graduate degree in international journalism from City University of London and is an occasional guest lecturer at Makerere University's Department of Journalism and Communication. Ladies and gentlemen, Daniel Kalinachi. So I hand over to Charles Mangusia to moderate this discussion. Charles is the bureau chief of the East African newspaper and the host of the Fourth Estate show on NTV. Shall we have Charles? He prides in about 20 years' experience in the media. As a journalist, Charles has moderated conferences, dialogues, and debates in and out of Uganda. Don't worry, you're going to see Charles's picture soon. Or at least you see that person. He has presented papers at both local and international conferences on a wide range of subjects. Charles is a passionate advocate of media freedom in Uganda and beyond. He was the first journalist, together with Angelo Izama, to file an access to information request and subsequently the first access to information case after government refused to comply. This was in 2009. He served on the board of the Forum for African Investigative Reporters, based in Johannesburg, South Africa, for 3 years. Charles, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Marion. I think you can sympathize with me. I have a tough task to ask people with such deep and rich CVs questions about this report. Daniel is my boss. Professor Joko, we've debated once together on a BBC show. I don't know if he knew, and he's also my lecturer. Of course, Professor Nasanga. That's a little bit more trouble for me. But good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Do I have a microphone for the panelists? We have. Need one. So at the controls, can I have a microphone? You have a cordless? They have microphones. Okay. Yeah, I'm told to use those small things on your table. They should be able to help us communicate. Trends, world trends in media freedom and in freedom of expression and media development, and the summary that Lydia presented to us just a while ago. The report has distinct,
which I think is an important issue. It would be useful to have to take that even further and speak about the diversity in terms of the views and voices that are represented in the media, including minorities. The other thing about the report that's important is the focus on the internet companies, including the social media giants, because
we'll resolve this in a moment. The technical people are working on it.
Thank you. Thank you, moderator. I want to give some general comments on the report generally. There are a lot of issues of concern in the report. But let me start off on a positive note. I'll comment on the structure of the report. 4 areas: media freedom, media pluralism, media independence, and safety of journalists. Each of these 4 main areas has a distinct subsection on gender equality. Given that the way media portray an issue, in this case gender issues, has a significant impact on societal perceptions, then if efforts to address gender imbalances are to bear fruit, interventions for gender balance in media activities are a good starting point. And I want to commend UNESCO, the researchers and the research team for structuring this report in this way so as to bring out the gender perspective, such that at the end of the day, this is a very useful guide for all interested in gender inclusive development. I'll say something about media independence and pluralism. The report rightly notes that economic forces are weakening media independence and pluralism. Alongside that, we have media concentration and media conglomerates emerging. I think we don't need to look very far in Uganda. We have the New Vision Group, we have the Nation Media Group, and NBS coming up as the media magnets in the country. While we have the radio stations spread across the country, these are largely owned by politicians, and you know what their agenda is. Their agenda is to promote government interests, not the voices of the ordinary people. Uganda, like other countries, now follows a liberalized ideology. But there is a case for some regulation on media ownership. Otherwise, media is no longer serving the purpose of being a public sphere where everybody should come to willingly exchange ideas. Right now, it seems to become more and more the preserve of the rich and the promoting interests of the owners largely. So the lack of pluralism also means lack of diversity in voices heard. And further, the concentrated ownership makes it very conducive for government to manipulate what comes out in the media. You know, it is not as easy if we had, for instance, over 20 TV stations, newspapers, radio stations scattered all over the country. Government had to do some work to manipulate the media content in all these. But right now, with the 3 major ones, it's so easy because of the different outlets they control. So further, these other 2 conglomerates, the New Vision, the Nation Media, and the NBS, do need adverts from government and its agencies. So they clearly soon learn how to toe the line. At the end of the day, what this means
is that the minds of the nation are in the few hands because this control what is coming out in the media. Touching on training, being from a training background, the report notes that there has been notable growth. For instance, in Uganda, where we had one university in 1988, we now have over 11 universities offering training at degree level. We have also other institutions training at diploma certificates and development agencies giving short courses. Now, when you look at the training we are having and the resources, this is largely funded by foreign media development agencies. Where are our priorities as a country? We appreciate the role of the media. Those involved in capacity building, I will not name them, but you know that US has been very instrumental in setting up campus FMs, including one at Makerere. We have Sweden, Norway, UNESCO has also contributed to training, NIDA, Frederick Ebert Foundation, PANOS, Article 19, and several others who have been engaged in capacity building at various levels. Earlier on, one of the previous speakers touched on the importance of media and information literacy. Apart from the urban youth who have largely taken on social media, the abundant information has not been utilized and benefited the whole population. While the UN has set the 2020 as the target for universal connectivity, not enough is being done to address the issue of media and information literacy. If the information is available, but the people do not know how or where to get this, then it is not very beneficial. So the media and information literacy means that people should know what kind of information is available and how to get the information they need. Touching briefly on the gender equality and media participation, already a number of statistics have been given. The report noted the gender imbalance. Indeed, in Uganda too, and other countries globally, we experience this based on the Global Media Monitoring Report. What is of greater concern is that the women seem to have reached the peak and they are not progressing. If we check the statistics for women as subjects in the news, in 2015, this was at 24%. But of concern is that even 5 years prior to that, it was still 24%. This is 2010. Looking at stories reported by women, there we have more cause to worry. Because the 2015 report shows that we had 37% women reporters. 5 years prior to that in 2010, it was still 37%. 5 years or 10 years back, in 2005, it was still 37%. So are women moving anywhere near the half, given that they are 51% on average for most countries? The UN has launched the Planet 50-50 to be achieved by 2030. Are we likely to see these statistics improving for women representation and participation in the media? That is an issue for you and me to watch out for. Now, touching briefly on the safety of journalists, I'll just share a clip to show you the kind of experiences some of the journalists are subject to in Uganda.
What began as a normal day for NBS's Twaha Muchiri turned cloudy and finally went back at about noon. He was assigned to conduct an interview with the leader of a gang group, popularly known as Sobi, the same that addressed the press conference on Christmas. The venue for their interview was Rose Gardens in Chengeda. And so, at 9 a.m., Muchibi, in the company of other colleagues, left office and headed to Chengeda. Everything was moving on well until about midday when plainclothes men arrived, were later followed by men in uniform who were all ready and armed for the job.
Kubagamba nti ndi munnamawulire kubanga babadde bakuba buli muntu nebadde tebadde kutandika kunkuba naye bwe ngambye nti ndi munnamawulire nga mpanise n'emikono waggulu wabba banze nga buli gwe basanga gwe bakubamu mu kwanika emikono ne mbagamba ndi munnamawulire kati awo emiggo bwe gyeyongeredde ddala batuni zonna abadde bankuba babadde nga basajja basatu.
His deafening cries of being an innocent journalist did not save him either. Now lying in a hospital bed, Muchibi recalls the events of the day.
Mulimu abali mu byambalo naye nga bakuba bukubi n'endeekaana ndi bwamawulire mpanisa emikono ngoze buli kimu n'endaajana nga bagenda mu maaso nakunkuba. Kati ekinkomeza okuleekana nti ndi bwamawulire nga bankuba omu kugamba nti shoot kasita agambye nti shoot ng'aleekanya waggulu n'ensirikale ezo ntuba kyekinantaasa ne basigala nga bankuba.
So you can see the job hazards that journalists are subject to. For those who did not follow, that was the journalist. He had done an assignment. When they came to round up the culprits, he was also beaten. And he tried to explain that for him he was a journalist, but that fell on deaf ears. I'm not sure whether he has left Oslo, but he was hospitalized for a while. Plagiarism issues. This is courtesy of NPS, not the professor. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Pass the microphone to your colleague, Professor Juko. When Lydia was presenting, we'll come back to thresh out the report a little bit later. But when Lydia was presenting, she talked about the law that allows access to information, to seek and receive information, and talked about restrictions on dissemination of that same information. You teach law. You've written a book on the fourth estate. And Uganda was the first country in the world, on the African continent, to pass an Access to Information Act in 2005. Someone was asking me yesterday, did the regulations come into effect? Because they should have come into effect, I think, somewhere around 2010. I'm not sure if they did. So the law that allows access and the law that takes away, where are Ugandan journalists? Where is journalism in Uganda standing today?
I think you have a comprehensive global. I think this report is comprehensive. And I think it tries to disaggregate what happened. But perhaps what we should avoid is also, I think, the influence of regions matters. Even the historical marginalization relations between regions. I think this report also looks at the new technologies, both positive and negative. And I like this report because it also has a lot of regional what is happening in Uganda, whether about journalists, whether about limitations of his rights, so many things. But I think one of the point eventually is
expression. I think it's an area that probably has the worst terminologies. And they have a whole lot of past use. If you realize, on the one hand, we have freedom of expression. If you went to the US, talking about freedom of speech. This very report talks about freedom of expression, talks about media freedom and freedom of press. You would think that freedom of the press is probably smaller than media freedom, but the report tells you that actually that concept is very. I think this runs into the whole analysis. We know historically where this comes from. National reality. Talk about freedom of speech, technologies, and eventually freedom of the media. International itself, when it invented freedom of expression, well, it's not self-evident what that means, because expression means empathic. Well, then the law has to elaborate. No, expression here means freedom to see, receive, and information. This report still defines press freedom as the media freedom as freedom people to impart. I think we probably need to change this so that freedom, media freedom, even press freedom, yeah, to concentrate on professional things, but should also reflect the freedom of ordinary people like myself to seek and receive information through free media. I think that is more comprehensive, and it's even more important because in the end, if you isolate this freedom as simply professional freedom, those who seek to limit it will be more attracted to limiting, limited right. But when you express it in its comprehensiveness as a human right, then of course you can't just limit it. So on the question of course, the 1995 Constitution included a provision that required Parliament to enact a law on access to information. I think the track record is this. Nothing was done for 10 years. And even then, in order to enact that law, you see, a private member's bill had to be moved. It's only then that government intervened and brought its own bill. So the law was eventually passed and is stalled in terms of implementation because there were no regulations. Yeah. Those regulations were eventually bit last.
And let me come to you back quickly. The report highlights quite a number of issues that newsrooms need to contend with. One is the conglomeration, the conglomeration of media outlets. Professors just talked about large groups emerging. Vision Group is a large group. Nation Media Group is a large group. Next Media, I think it's called Next Media, which runs NBA, is another large group. And then on the other hand, the reality in Uganda that you have over 240, 270 radio stations that are licensed for running on air, but who owns them and how do you deal with that? Number two is Lydia talked about Githeri Media. Previously, that was called brown envelope journalism. Was it something close to that? How do you strike a balance and claim your space? How do you claim that space as journalists and say, or as newsrooms, that we have we should be right at the center or the lead people in demanding for this freedom of expression.
Thank you, Charles. See, if we just saw, would we be discussing it? I think it's very problematic in and of itself because what cherry picked one of us and spoken out then. Yet the bigger problem is that someone whose job is to keep law and order is quite visibly without any provocation coming in and dispensing. It's abuse of law. And so we need to look, and this is one of the shortcomings of the report, in my opinion, that it is very narrowly focused on media freedom, different terminologies, which uses to express the point, without seeking to connect that to wider erosions of freedoms, particularly in developing societies, but increasingly in developed societies as well. If we see the media landscape in the United States, for instance, in the post-Trump period, if we see the restrictions on civil society, we see restrictions on academic spaces, you begin to actually see that the erosions of media freedom aren't taking place in a vacuum. They are an extension of a much wider rolling back of freedoms themselves and rights. And I think it's important not to turn this into a professional argument merely for the rights of journalists, but to see it as a democratic argument in terms of human rights. Now, in terms of the...
Before you leave that point, because I think it's a fundamental point, isn't it the same debate that we had 13 years ago at the passage of the Access to Information Act? Was it a law to facilitate journalists' access to government information, or was it a law, as Professor Juba put it, to facilitate access to information on a broader scale? But let me just give some context to this. The Uganda Freedom of Information Act was passed at the same time as the Indian Freedom of Information Act. By 2013, in India, 8 million information requests had been made, and government had responded to them and given them. Uganda was still struggling on how to locate itself, how to apply its Access to Information Act. If you look at the latest numbers, they have moved a lot ahead. So where is that missing link that we had asked that you can expand the appreciation of these freedoms, not just to be for media and for students of journalism and mass communication at Makerere University and other universities, but actually for all of us?
That's a good question. And at the risk of kind of broadening the conversation beyond its remit here, we need to then ask the question of the return or the introduction of multi-party politics in post-Cold War Africa, and whether that was as a result of ideological commitment to political pluralism and building blocks of independent institutions, free and fair media, or whether it was in response to pressure, the departure of one of the counterweights in the global political movement, and that therefore countries and governments made symbolic gestures towards reform by producing new constitutions, by returning political parties, but that what we've seen in recent years, the rolling back of many of these reforms, countries changing constitutions, leaders refusing to hold elections, the reduction of the political process into a set of political rituals where elections are selections. It's a broader argument of whether when the government passed that law, it was actually committed that citizens have a right to access information in the case of public officials, or whether it was a necessary thing to do, an instrumental thing to do to respond to pressure from donors and other agencies. The question that Goritze raises is very important, and I'm a bit conflicted about conglomeration in the sense that I can see the danger of the centralization of media ownership, and especially where that ownership also has interests in other areas. So you have the problem of having to cover sectors in which the person who owns the media house has interest. It's a real legitimate concern. But we also realize that many of the smaller radio stations, for instance, newspapers that aren't part of conglomerates are struggling. So sometimes conglomeration allows for unsustainable or unprofitable media operations to continue. I don't know how many of the Vision Group small newspapers will, for instance, survive as independent publications, but we must probably have the discussion on who is a fit and proper person on the media house, and how do you ensure that in terms of the transparency, there's transparency in understanding how that media house is covering the sectors within which its owners have interest. And then the final question of Theory Johnson. I think it's a continuation and a reflection of a much bigger problem. I think the corruption within the media industry reflects, I think, wider corruption in other parts of society. It's not on it, but I don't think it's. If you're in a country where people in charge of custody public land will sign off school playing grounds to phantom investors, you shouldn't be surprised when people in charge of public spaces, intellectual spaces, either take money to markets or take money to run stores.
Professor, you wanted to say something?
Yes,
Yes.
on media concentration, I think there are two things to say. One, in Uganda, you have that concentration that is about the cause relationship between with government, either through government factors, owning, or having close relationship between government and those economic interests that at the same time own media. Secondly, globally, I think monopolization is a fact of economic life since 1900. That's gone. You can only try to regulate it. And I think what should happen is that you need strong public service. Because if you have that,
First microphone to Professor Hassan. Professor, how do you navigate this? What would be your advice to the media? Because Guardian Media, for example, is running public solicitation, saying we'll continue to give you independent news, but we need you to fund us. So put in a shilling. If you ask Daniel here, and the people always there who work in newsrooms every day, the struggle is about how many copies are you selling as a newspaper? Who is advertising in your newspaper? And this cuts across. Government remains the biggest advertiser. So how do you navigate? And this conglomeration is partly informed by the need, like Daniel said, to survive as the world.
I think there are some evils in society that are necessary, but then we have to find means of minimizing their impact. It makes economic sense to have the conglomerates because it makes it cheaper to run. When you are producing many outlets, you share materials across, but that's the very thing we are talking about, the voices being heard. This media space is a public space, but now it is monopolized by a few people. Remember now, any media coming up, it's very difficult to compete with these ones. They're already established with a big market to penetrate that. Was for, say, the Nation Media Group, these are regional. So the thing is not that it is only now Uganda being affected. So even the region is going in that direction. At the end of it, you have a few people who are able to influence policies, markets, everything, the economy itself. So it's not really healthy. It may make economic sense, but for the good of the majority of the citizens, it is something dangerous at the end.
Yes,
we would probably need some kind of regulation who can own what media to what, a ceiling. If Nation Media Group can own probably 2 TV stations in an area and beyond, not the whole concentration say, of Kampala where the elites are, policy makers, etc. It's now they have all these minds in their hands, which is not really very healthy. We could talk in terms of geographic distances, how much radius they can cover, and up to how much percent they can own in an area.
Okay, so let me just stay with you for a moment. I know Daniel wants to respond, and then I also want to come to the audience. Uganda was celebrated for liberalization of the media. I mean, you're talking about 270 radio stations across the country. You're talking about 30 TV stations, maybe about 16 of those are on air. But has that improved access to quality, meaningful information to the public that you're talking about? Number 2, you could take that discussion to online access. It's become a lot more liberalized. But number 3, you could ask the question, if the public is not willing or is unable to buy this media, because newspapers were sustained by circulation numbers. I don't know how many lecturers at Makerere University buy their own copy of a newspaper. How many are able to buy a whole range of newspapers, the Monitor, the New Vision, the East African Observer, Red Paper, and carry them home every evening? Because that would make a difference. So if that is the environment in which you're operating, how do you navigate out of it? In light of this search for freedom of expression and media development.
Okay, for the radios that may be spread across the country, you need to remember that these pick their agendas from the newspapers, these national newspapers. Every morning we get the press reviews, and of course any radio station takes on the trends to follow up what is news. So indirectly still, these big newspapers, the media house and the media houses that own them set the agenda for the media to follow. In some countries, what has been done is to kind of again have some limits on how much company can advertise with a certain media, so that the advertising revenue gets spread out. That way, even the small surviving, say, media outlets can try to cope. Because if you have revenue, you are not allowed to give it only to Monitor or to Makerere. You have reached the ceiling, you have to give it to some other smaller newspaper also. Observer would also now probably have a stronger voice. And now they can't compete because they don't have enough adverts. Or leadership culture, that's in some schools, we were doing something on media and information literacy, and we discovered that I think it's also again supported by UNESCO, ASIA project, and a number of media and information literacy programs where they have taken it to primary schools to try and encourage them to write and exchange kind of local newspaper system. We need to start from bottom, from the beginning. Generally, not only in Uganda, we don't have a reading culture. As they say, if you want to hide something from an African, publish it, write it. Then they won't read it, and they have no defense because it is there for them to know. The reading culture is generally poor. But if efforts towards media and information literacy are kind of invigorated, then probably people would be able to appreciate the value of news in the print, not only on, say, radios, as now the trend is.
Daniel, then we'll go to the audience.
I think there are situations where there's clear abuse of monopolistic power. It's not just in the media. I think you can see it in the telecoms, you can see it in the banking sector, you can see it in the retail sector. So that danger is real. But in trying to solve it, we need to be careful not to throw out the baby with the bathwater. And I think the problem we have, and this leads from the point of the rolling back of freedom of speech, not just media, but civil society, and so on and so forth, is that in some of these countries, we now find that we probably have a lot more democracy and not enough state. Because if there was a problem with a media house abusing its ownership, its conglomerate status, there should be institutions to which individuals can go, and those institutions should be strong enough and impartial enough to actually call those media houses. But the fundamental question is that in terms of access or the right to access information, there must be individual choice. There must be a market mechanism in place. That people, if they think that a certain media house is pushing the agenda of its owner, that they have a choice to go to another media house. So I'm more concerned about those media houses that receive taxpayers' money or that might be favored in receiving government advertising. And a little less more concerned about the individuals, because the market will punish you if you simply seem to be pushing the agenda.
Thank you. I'd like to open this up to the audience and a few comments. Thank you, sir. Your name and just keep it very brief so that we can have as many.
My issues are really on quality. Media pluralism really go a lot for quantity instead of quality. If you look at, for example, you talked about women being 30%. But in the last few years, if you look at the Vision Group, the Asian chief is a lady, Carol is here, financial position at the monitor. So should we really not put that in the quality? If you look at most media houses, the radio stations, actually, they have editors who are women. But then we go for quality, quantity. If you look at the universities, for example, we have more universities. But are we producing better journalists than when Makerere was the only one with a journalism school? You actually find that the journalism has deteriorated with more institutions coming out to teach. The same with media houses. Look at the online media, there are many here, but just look at the way they are covering this, the bank closure. It just tells you the kind of journalism they are participating. The media houses are many. Is that more democracy? Is that more media pluralism? They have given a voice to witch doctors, but the other issues really there isn't much.
Okay, can you pass that microphone to Professor Baine there next to you to answer those questions you're raising? Eh? He has been paid. Take the microphone, Carol. Gender and the media was a critical thing. Professor Nasanga talked about it. Lydia talked about it. The ambassador talked about it, and Dennis is asking questions. Dennis was asking questions about it.
I think that the question that needs to be kept asking. I think there's strides that have been made. If I look from personal experience, if I see where I started as a monitor and where we are now, the number of women we have, not just the number of women, but the different posts or different roles that we have, I think there's been a growth. And it was always said women always go to the softer parts of the paper, they do the features and the health and the women issues. But if I look across the different newspapers that we have, who are to pick the three that have been talked about, say for example, the New Vision at Daily Monitor, the Observer, we have women in positions of leadership, not just particular sections, but who are leading a whole section. So I think that there have been strides made. So I don't think we should downplay that. I think we should be happy, and I think we should then sort of figure out and say, okay, what happened? How did those women get there? And what more can we do to get more women? I think it's a complex issue. I don't think it's just about how can we get more women. encourage them. That I think it's very many things to do with the culture. For example, at the workplace, I see how difficult it can be for women when they're at a certain stage in life, when they've honestly gotten married, having children. It's a different ball game. You're juggling so many things. Is your newsroom supportive? Are they giving you all the leave days you need, maternity and that kind of thing? Are they understanding that this is new, this is different, you're the first woman to do something, so you need all the support you can get, or do they expect that you just go with the flow? So I think many things need to be put into consideration, and there's still much more to be done, but I think we've come somewhere.
Thank you. Can I say by show of hands, anybody wants to ask a question or make a comment? The audience? Take it to the gentleman there, and then we'll go to Stephen on the other side and the two ladies here. Then we'll see if we can bring it back.
Good evening. My name is Asa Konde. I'm a first-year student of law at Makerere. My issue, I have like two issues. One is the purchasing power of the general public, and the general public afford to, for example, buy one copy of New Vision per day or one copy of Daily Monitor per day. Another issue is a comment. When I was in primary, that was about 13 years ago. That was a time when Charles Onyango, Daniel Kainaki, and Andrew Mwenda were very good at Daily Monitor, and we had a journalism club in my primary school where they would encourage parents to pay a subscription fee per term so that students can be able to get an affordable copy of Daily Monitor, for example. They can read and they can be able to comment on the trending events. New Vision also set up a competition where they would ask questions from the newspapers and they would assess the best school, for example, in the term. So all those initiatives are no longer there, and there's that kind of attitude of people giving up. And I think if it's regulated, it can be okay.
Thank you. Then you will answer the question about the clubs, the journalism clubs. I will attempt the other one. People will ask you, are people able to afford a beer? Are people able to afford, which is more expensive? Are people able to afford MPs on their phones to do WhatsApp? Maybe. Yes, sir?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm called Stephen Omabuire. I'm General Secretary at Uganda Journalists Union, Union of Journalists. I have just three issues to touch, and one of them is addressed to Brother Daniel Kainaki. One is on the safety of journalists. With the exception of New Vision and Monitor, I don't think if there is any media house here which takes safety of journalists who cover riot, war, and other serious fields that journalists are assigned to cover. What measures are we taking to ensure that journalists who cover riots, before you condemn police for firing tear gas, canisters on our members, how have we taken measures to ensure that they are provided with the protective gear as they cover? That's one. Two, poor working conditions. Journalists are one of the most poorest paid members in Uganda here. I think for you some of you who are following the discussions of enactment of minimum wage in Uganda, the report is at cabinet level. It has been approved. It will be coming to parliament. I don't know whether we've pushed hard to see that some of our views are incorporated. They are looking at the sectoral provisions that will be considered in enacting a minimum wage. I don't know whether it will address partly the issues that you mentioned of ethical conduct of journalists. Because one of the issues which force journalists to indulge themselves into corrupt tendencies or brown envelopes are poor pay. Are we addressing that? And lastly, still I'm addressing you to my brother, Daniel Kainaki. The president has always said that we have too much freedom and we are still demanding for more freedom. But how positively or progressively are we using that freedom? Are we using it developmental, or are we just asking for it so that for the sake of just using other people in the media? Thank you.
Thank you. I would have thrown the other question back to Niju, but since we have limited time, I will not. So can we keep this very brief? I've overshot my time by 3 minutes already.
Thank you very much. My name is Lucy Anyango Ikadu. I'm the chairperson, Uganda Journalists Union. Two quick rejoinders. The first one is, so one of the panelists mentioned the issue of monopoly as a constant and how to find a way to regulate it. My question is the interaction with our regulator, Uganda Communications Commission. I do not think they have a provision to check monopoly. I would like to pick your minds on that and see. The other one is what Mr. Daniel Kalinaki called the no norms, the issues of breaking the glass ceiling that we grapple with every day. Actually, the point is not now breaking the glass ceiling. The point now is once you break that glass ceiling, what is the support system for you as a female journalist in maybe a position of power? That is my question.
Thank you. Pass the microphone.
Thank you. My name is Harriet Anena. I work at the African Center for Media Excellence. I'd just like to comment on two things that came up. The first, which has been sort of a resounding comment, is that female journalists need to be given more prominence, or they need to be given more space, promoted to the top, because the numbers show that we are actually not doing very well. But I think that we should also, as female journalists, claim our space ourselves. Nobody's going to come and give us what is due, right? The time for sitting back and saying we deserve this, give us this is long gone. So we need to claim our space. If the guy you share a desk with was promoted to editor and you're still a reporter, ask what made him, get promoted. All right. And then the issue of monopoly, I don't think we need to regulate who joins a media space. We actually need more players in the field. Those who do not have quality or relevant content will be pushed out ultimately. So I don't think we need regulation in that area.
Thank you very much. Trying for time, would have had more interaction. I need to bring the microphone back to the panel. A lot of questions came to Daniel, so let's start from here.
Thank you. Just run through. So, women in media, Harrington, do we need to do more? It shouldn't even be done as a it should be because it's the right thing to do. And because women, if you're going to run a successful media operation, you need to have the best people. If women make up half the population, you shouldn't have this panel as a majority. It's not even this, not it's a representative. Now there is progress. It's not enough. We need to kind of not lose all of them. You deflect the question and ask how many women we have in the Army Council, how many we have in generals, how many women we have in the Mwasa executive. Yeah. It's not to deflect the question, it's to acknowledge that there's a problem and be very deliberate about it. Not merely promoting women because there's a lot of pressure, but creating conditions. And I think Carol had made the point. When women come back from having babies, for instance, what kind of support they provide, so flex hours, you can attend the time that they need, having pressure at the office, actually called so there is work in progress. Let's not forget that, for instance, our last MD interview, Barbara is, runs the division, very competent. Lots of people there. Carol here is one of the editors, the editor of the Daily Note, and they are not promoted because they're women, promoted because they are women. Purchasing power, subscribe to a year's supply, which, in my opinion, costs you less than 150,000 shillings delivered to your home or your office. Now, if you can't spend 150,000 shillings a year on the East Africa, but you can spend twice that in a pub in an evening, then you're ignorant, you're entitled to ignorance. Safety of journalists, we do what we can, not enough, nearly enough. I could argue that going out to have a story shouldn't be a matter of life. Because then, what kind of training are they giving vendors when they go out to sell their things in the streets so they're not shot dead by the police? I think focusing on the wider environmental issues is almost as important as focusing on the industry. Poor working conditions. I don't know what Stephen you're making when you're in the newsroom, but look at the UBOS stats. And the median wage in Uganda is ridiculous. It's something like 380,000 last time I checked each time. So journalists aren't paid what they should be paid. We need to pay our journalists a lot more. It's not just the journalists. What the teachers make, what the policemen make, what the soldiers make. We need, and what kind of country we have whereby people who are paid less than the average and still access reasonable level of services. I think it's the bigger picture to me that is more important than just individual plans. And finally, the question of we have too much freedom. That's a very dangerous case when someone who's in power was suggesting that, because the insinuation is that this freedom is something that is granted to citizens and therefore can be taken away for bad behavior. I think freedom is, many of these freedoms are inherent, and the role of the state is just to manage the exercise of your own freedoms, don't violate others, that any restrictions on the enjoyment of your rights to demonstrate viable, justifiable. So,
thank you, Daniel. It's like the freedom is being put in a basket somewhere, so someone is picking out some and says, I have given you too much, so you should get a little bit away, so they can balance out with the others. I don't know how that logic works. Professor?
Yes, about 4 points. The first is about purchasing power. I don't think this has to do anything with Africans or whatever. These papers are not going to talk. They were for the middle class, urbanized people. So the problem here is structural. The majority of our people are peasants in the countryside. They are not urbanized. Don't expect them to be urbanized. Secondly, structurally, the population has a problem in terms of age. Those will not buy this paper. So it's a real objective situation. Secondly, on the question of monopoly, first of all, as somebody was saying, there's no law. The regulator, UCC, whereby you have a draft broadcasting policy that has never been turned into law. So there's no way of regulating, legal regulating monopolies. But I think some regulation is necessary. The other thing that I think the report mentions that is important in Uganda is the question of self-regulation and the question of self-organization of organization. Two issues. You see, journalists as professionals will not have an impact if there's no effective self-organization. As professionals, or even as journalist unions, the officials there, so you still have media houses that don't have an organization. Basic work, most basic, unless those things happen, journalists it's probably the most important. Lastly, I think this report mentions something very important for the whole globe. It mentions a turn towards populism, nationalism, identity, all those kind of issues. And I think this is very important media. Because if you look at the last 2 years, look at the elections in the exit. You see the attitude of Europe towards immigrants and so forth and so on. It looks like the 1930s, you see, before Nazis. You see the suppression of media, but also the ability to use the media to pursue it. I think what required national case because I think it is
Thank you, Professor. So can I have Professor Nasanga?
I'll touch on the safety of journalists, and I want to take on from where Professor Joko left. A strong professional journalists union. We are mourning that journalists are poorly paid. But you know that a journalist gets much less than a teacher. You've not put out your worth. You've let the media owners employ S4 graduates, S6 graduates, when you people are out there trained, but because nobody can speak for you with a strong voice and umbrella, they continue to exploit the journalists, and you've nowhere to complain. They can, because they hired you, they can fire you, and the union of Mr. is not really felt. If that union was really functional, some of these problems would not be as grave as they are now, because it's each one to himself or herself. Nobody talks to the boss when they decide now and tomorrow, please don't show up. The issue of women representation, of course, it has improved. It has improved. But we looked at the statistics. Is that the ceiling? If women are half, why can't we move towards 45, 50? So normally the discussion is about, oh, the situation has improved. We have the women in top management positions, but it's also voices. And what we are saying, somebody mentioned that, oh, women should not be given these positions. Nobody's giving any woman a position if they can't run it, if they're not qualified. What we are saying is that they should be capacitated, empowered to live up to the performance in those positions so that they can take them on. It's no use giving her a position when she cannot manage. Definitely should be, dismissed, fired for incompetence. And that's not what we are talking about. We are talking about empowering women. We have the Uganda Media Women's Association, which has done a lot to kind of mentor women and support them. So such initiatives should be encouraged, because it is now the media development partners who are supporting the Uganda Media Women's Association so that it can do its work. So it's not picking a woman and just giving her a job. The interaction with the regulator, this is a tricky point, in that once it was allowed to start, it's difficult now to put a stop to it. You see government really telling New Vision that, stop expanding or monitor. But once it goes beyond, then it's difficult to get back to it. Remember, the people who are responsible for the policies, the laws, are the owners. So they don't want to legislate against their interests. That's where the civil society would come in with a strong voice, speaking for the masses rather than the few moneyed interests.
Thank you very much. Can you join me to give a round of applause to our panel? Apologies, overshot at time by, I think, 17 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Clearly, that was a very good panel discussion, which we can continue after here at the guest house. I'm certain we have a lot of things that can still come up. But let's give them another round. Thank you so much for bringing all your experience and insights into this discussion. We have been blessed by UNDP. They've given us some calendars. Should you want to pick one, they're with the ushers at the back. Thank you so much, Michael. He has left. I kindly extend our appreciation. Let me, without taking much more time, get to the reason why we are here. We came to launch, and in our midst, our guest of honor, who is going to launch this report for us, is Honorable Eddie Mulumba, who is a member of the Uganda Human Rights Commission. He's also a board member of Uganda Air Cargo. He's a board member of Action for Gender-Based Empowerment Network, USA, representing the East African region. In relation to education, he holds a master's degree in social sector planning and community development from the University of Nairobi. He has a bachelor's in social sciences from Makerere University and is currently a student at the School of Law here. Ladies and gentlemen, our chief guest this evening. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. When I come to make remarks, basically I'm going to repeat what everybody has said because they are typical. What I'm doing, I'm trying to domesticate the global trends as it is, as it's obtained in Uganda. I bring you greetings from the Uganda Human Rights Commission, which, as you may be aware, is the national human rights institution mandated to protect and promote human rights in the country. The Commission is honored by the invitation to launch this report on global trends in freedom of expression and media management. The Commission welcomes the report not only in the view of the critical importance of evidence-based analysis in developing appropriate actions, but more importantly, because it covers fundamental human rights, i.e., freedom of expression. Freedom of speech and expression underpins all other human rights and freedoms because individuals must be free to exercise their right to think, form an opinion, freely seek, receive, and impart ideas and opinions in order for them to effectively realize all their human rights that are the requisite for their human dignity. The Constitution of Uganda provides Article 29 that every person shall have the right of freedom of speech and expression, which shall include freedom of press and other media. This right is also provided in a number of other international and regional human rights instruments ratified by Uganda, and equally underscores the great significance. Indeed, freedom of press and other media and individual freedoms of expression are indivisible and interdependent. The promotion and protection of the media freedoms enhances the wider freedom of speech and expression of individuals and the public. On the flip side, any attack or illegitimate restriction on media freedom inevitably impacts negatively on the general freedom of speech and expression of individuals. It follows then that issues of media freedom should be a concern of all citizens, and not just the media fraternity or the human rights defenders. The indispensable role of free, independent, vibrant, and gender-sensitive media in functioning democracy cannot be overemphasized. Not only are the enablers of the right to freedom of speech and expression, as already alluded to, but they also facilitate the enjoyment of rights to information. These two rights are critical for enhancing citizens' participation in their governance and in development process. Active and informed participation of citizens is one of the 5 principles of human rights-based approach, which is a sure means of sustainable development. The Uganda Human Rights Commission with the National Planning Authority tried to focus human rights-based approach in Uganda, so that we are in line that whatever we're going to be doing should be in tandem, whatever government should be doing should be in tandem with the human rights-based approach. As the Constitution of Uganda demands, the exercise and enjoyment of rights and freedoms of is inseparable from the performance of duties and obligations. Media and press freedom come with special duties and responsibilities on the part of the journalists, the fulfillment of which is equally critical for protection of the media freedom. The positive developments in the media landscape across the world are welcome. Some of those cited in the report are the legal guarantees of the freedom of expression and media freedom, the developments in technology leading to unprecedented influence of the internet, with the emergence of new media having the potential to expand the freedoms, the information sources, as well as the actors who are currently beyond the journalists. There is also increased recognition and enhancement of right access information, recognition of the need for training and professionalism, the acknowledgement that cyberspace requires regulation, journalists increasingly playing their role as human rights defenders, and actions to enhance the safety of the journalists. However, the disruptive effects of these developments remain concerns that human rights defenders, enforcers, and all stakeholders need to closely monitor. These include, to mention but a few, the disadvantage brought about by the diminishing space of journalism in the traditional sense, the abuse and misuse of social media as a source of false and unverified news, the impact of profit motivation on social media businesses, and the lack of independence from commercial interests, the tendency for some journalists to put profiteering above professionalism, and its negative impact on the neutrality and objectivity and the metamorphosis of journalists into government spies. Because we are seeing at times some of the problems that are, there was a time when a journalist was kidnapped, and what came out of the media itself was so alarming. We saw when they closed Red Paper, what other print medias were saying. They were saying that no, they should continue just closing them. So we're seeing that even the media itself, there is so much that meets the eye. No doubt, therefore, that the findings on the media freedom and its key pillars of pluralism, independence, and safety are presented in a global report will be instrumental in informing the appropriate actions for the industry self-regulation, policy and law reform, as well as effective implementation of existing frameworks. Therefore, the realization of the fundamental freedoms of expression in its entirety, both globally and in Uganda specifically, must be effectively enhanced. This launch therefore provides another opportunity for us stakeholders to be reminded that a lot still needs to be done to ensure full respect of the freedom of expression. Some soul searching is required not only to ensure improvement in observance of all rights at stake, but also to prevent retrogression in aspects on which gains have already been registered. The occasion should also be used by the media practitioners to recommit themselves to raise the bar of their professionalism by adhering to their professional ethical code and guard against misusing their important role as enablers of the enjoyment of rights to information in their respective communities. As a key stakeholder in human rights protection and promotion in Uganda, the Commission pledges to follow up the findings and recommendations with the concerned parties. We will closely monitor the implementation of the set obligations on freedom of expression, media, freedom of expression, and media freedom as stipulated in the Constitution of Uganda and other human rights instruments, including the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and UN Plan of Action on the Safety of the Journalists. So many things take place, like we saw journalists being beaten. When we see such things, we take them up with the police. At times we need journalists to come and report. If they report, we investigate and try to seek remedy for those people. There's a situation, for example, a journalist was kidnapped. I was on television with him. I said, yes, now we must report. after that he disappeared. He doesn't have any interest in reporting. Now, so I was asking him, were you coming on TV for public sympathy or for what? Because if you really, just even for the journalists, if you are beaten, you don't just have to go and agonize. We've seen government bodies, when we start investigating, they run to some of these people and they say, oh, we are going to give you something, and so because they don't want it to be documented. So they compensate them in whatever manner they compensate them, and nobody reports, and the vice of questioning journalists continues. Like I say, should we be saying that journalism is a dangerous trade? No, they should go to do their work freely, knowing that they're going to go and come back. If you see a journalist being beaten by police because he said I'm a journalist, he doesn't have a gun, he doesn't have a stick, he actually, his hands are up. What exactly do you want the media houses to do? Because that means that if you give him a helmet, they would remove it and pounce on him. So maybe we need to do better as human rights defenders, and an attack on the journalists is an attack on everybody, and it's an attack on citizens and our right to information. I now take this pleasure to launch the 2017-2018 Global Report on World Trends in Freedom of Expression and Media Development.
Yeah, let me request the panelists to kindly come with your reports and join this lodge. The guest of honor will stand here, and so will our principal, and so will Madam Lydia. Yes, and the members of staff from the Department of Journalism. Kindly join. The ushers, you've been requested to join. But let's first, Hindu, kindly switch off the projector so that we don't have backlights. Ushers, hold on. Let's first have this one. Where are the? Is it? Okay. The panelists. The panelists. Members of staff from the Department of Journalism and Communication, come with your report. Mr. Mbaine, you're here. Mr. Waluria and Mr. Fred Kapoza. Kindly quickly join this group, this lodge photo. Ushers, just hold on. You're going to join as well. The photographers, are you happy with the? Is the photo balanced, or should they move a little bit to the other side? Okay, the guest of honor will make his announcement that he has lodged, then raise the report. Guest of honor, you've covered your face. Yes. A hand clap for the launch. Ushers, please join in. Ushers, Mr. Baini, kindly stay, and Professor Juko. Ushers, please join. We want the purple. Quickly fill the spaces. Not squats. Fill the spaces in the back or somewhere. Oh, Professor, yes. Oh, sorry, missed you in the earlier one. Yes, is everyone seen? Hold your report. Don't cover your face. Congratulations for launching this report. Hand clap. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Let's have a closing remarks by the principal, and then we shall proceed to have a drink at the guest house. Let's sit for a few minutes and finish this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Journalism and communication. I'm not going to make a speech because visibly we've done what brought us. I'd like to welcome all of you to Makerere University and to the College of Humanities and Social Sciences. I bring greetings from the principal who was not able to be here, Professor Edward Chirumira, and to thank the partners, Swedish government, Norwegian government, as well as UNESCO, for enabling this conversation. It's a very important conversation, and for us as College of Humanities and Social Sciences, this is what makes us alive. 2 comments on some of the issues. One would say, for example, that media freedoms and freedom of expression is as good as the politics of the nation, because we are really talking about the nature of politics. And somehow the journalists or media freedom cannot be an isolated issue, but definitely it's an important aspect of human freedoms. On the area of the gender perspective, one would also say that in addition to focusing on the number of women as in biological beings, we also want to concern ourselves with what we consume from the media. And because we know that the media, in addition to being a mirror of society, it also constructs normativity. It also constructs society. And so would like also to question in terms of women or men as subjects or as agents within what the citizenship consumes and how it becomes operated. I'm always interested in, for example, the projection of women as dependent, as those who are focusing on getting men's money, in the midst of all these increases of women in employment, of women earning, CEOs, all these people sitting in front of us, the Kawesis in parliament. And in spite of that, you have a woman speaker, you have women ministers, you have all these head teachers, all these leaders in communities, in local councils. And in spite of that, you have a sustained image of this extractive, dependent woman. I think the media is actually creating that position. It's creating that image. And I think in addition to us worrying about how many women are in the media profession, we ought actually to worry about what, I think the content also in terms of what gets consumed. And in a way then to conclude to say that we also have a right and a duty to demand such that, for example, we don't just consume the bulk of WhatsApp messages or jokes and all that, but that we are able also to consume information that is read as crossing the red line. In a way, you have freedom to say many things, but not others. And would like to have a citizenship that is able to to have a conversation of issues that cross the line. And with those very few remarks, I would like to thank you very much. And given that I'm speaking after the launch, really, I just want to say that the College of Humanities and Social Sciences is very glad to be partnering and to be identified with this very important global report on world trends on media freedoms and media development. Thank you very much.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the close of this, but we kindly ask you to join us for some refreshments at the University Guest House. I'm going to ask my colleague Gerard Waluria to come and direct us on how to get there. Otherwise, the colleagues from the media, again, should you want to stay behind for some more interviews, we are here very briefly. The rest of us, let us be led by Gerald and Professor Nasanga as the host department. Let us host our guests this evening to refreshments. Thank you very much for coming.